Let's start with a question. How do you know when any gun control pressure out there is working if the United States Senate blocks most of the attempts to get Congress to act? Well, tonight, here's a new sign of some shift. The largest retailer in the United States, Walmart, pulling back on some gun sales and halting ammunition sales for assault-style rifles and handguns. And this store, popular across the South and Midwest, is also drawing a line by banning its own customers from openly carrying when they shop inside Walmart. The decision comes in the wake of two deadly shootings at Walmart stores last month, including the shooting at the El Paso store, which was one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history. Now, this weekend, there was another shooting rampage, this time in West Texas, with 7 people killed. Altogether, 53 people have died in just mass shootings in the United States in August alone. Walmart's decision is not only coming from the top either, but after what we know from a lot of activism, including internal pressure from employees. My next guest works for Walmart, and last month he sent a petition to the company's CEO asking for a halt to all of those gun sales. He eventually got over 140,000 signatures. Thomas Marshall joins us now. Thanks for being here. Hi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very happy to have you. You've obviously been part of a wide group, a coordinated group that's had impact. What made you do this? What did you learn from it? What do you want to do next?
Definitely. Well, especially after the recent tragedies in El Paso and South Haven, we as employees felt that we would no longer be willingly complicit in a company that was continuing to make profits off of firearms. And so we really kind of got together in the office and decided to take a stand. And we are incredibly grateful and impressed at the direction that Walmart is now going. We were very hopeful, but obviously this is something that is difficult to change in this country, and we are really hoping that this sort of sets a paradigm and a precedent, really, to help curb this horrible trend of mass shootings and violence in this country.
When you first started on this path, were you worried about your own job?
Definitely. And we did face a little bit of retaliation. However, down the line, we really believe that, this renewed our faith in the company in a way. Hopefully, we will see continued change and continued advocacy, but we're very much impressed by the direction we're currently going.
What do you think about this?
Initially, go ahead. Initially, I was completely willing to put my job on the line, and most of us who were protesting were. There was a lot of pressure coming from on high not to speak out, but we're incredibly glad that we did. And, I feel very, proud of having been able to speak out as well.
And finally, I'm wondering about this in the backdrop of debates that can be so black and white in America, especially with the role of corporations. We think about how they're addressed on the campaign trail. What was important to you about not just doing local political or civic activism, but trying to get a company to weigh in? Obviously, Walmart, what they do or don't do matters.
Yes, and Walmart is one of the largest retailers in the world and one of the largest firearms retailers in America. And so we're really hoping to take a stand within our sphere of influence. We, as employees of this company, Walmart is very receptive to the voice of every employee, and that's something that goes back to its founding with Sam Walton. And so we were very much hopeful that they would take our opinions into consideration and really hear us out, and we're very glad that they did. The next step, of course, is, this is an ongoing problem in this country. There's legislative action that can be done, but we really, in our sphere of influence with the retailer, that is something that really hasn't entered this national conversation, that people have to buy these weapons and ammunition from somewhere. Even as recently as the mass shooting in Florida in the nightclub that killed 60 people, those bullets were bought at a Walmart, and now we no longer sell those bullets as of this morning. So this is a very, very good step, but there are a lot greater cultural things that need to change in this country as well to hopefully curb this, really horrible stem of violence and hatred.
Thomas Marshall, you've been working on this issue. I think it's a story that's going to interest a lot of people. We wanted to hear from you directly. Thanks for coming on The Beat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.